Today we've got Janelle and Mike on the line who are going to provide us an update with this. And Janelle is the leader for proposal standardization and reuse, and she'll take us through things that are happening here. So if everyone can put their lines on mute so we can avoid any disturbance. There'll be a Q&A at the end of the session once Janelle's walked through the material. And obviously just send a question in the text box and we'll deal with that at the end. So without further ado, over to you, Janelle, and we'll start the recording right now. Oh, it's recording. Thank you. So over to you, Janelle. Let me just...
No worries. We got to record all the snafus, so perfect. All right, so first off, as Carrie said, if you guys can hold your questions to the end, that would be great. But if you want to go ahead and type them in the chat as we go, Mike Schweitzer, who's my partner in crime, will be trying to field some of those as we go, and maybe he can even answer it quickly, or we can, hold it for the group at the end. So first off, thank you for the opportunity. I am happy to be here. I know Mike is excited as well to come and present the progress that we've made in the proposal standardization and reuse initiative, and really to give you guys an update since November and talk about the rollout and what value you can expect specifically in the bid management community. So hopefully you remember the first two slides that I'm going to cover. Carrie, if you can go to the next one, please. These are slides that Mike presented in the all hands meeting back in November. And so, as a reminder, the overall goal of our initiative is to improve the efficiency, the consistency, and the quality of the proposal development process. And unlike some of the other initiatives that we have going on in DXC, there's a lot of work being added to your plates in some of those other initiatives. And unlike that one, we want to do something which is a little bit different. And so this initiative is strictly intended to make your role in the client proposal development process easier. And so what I'm going to talk about today is going to be ways that we're going to do that, where we are currently, where we're headed, and what you can expect along the way. So since November, in looking at this slide, just in objectives and expected benefits, we've made a lot of progress and completed a lot of work in that time frame to help move us closer to these objectives and the expected benefits. We're still following the knowledge management disciplines, which we're driving this through a closed loop process, which I'll show you on the next slide. But before we move to that slide, just real quickly, a reminder, the KM disciplines include having a standard process, having a centralized gold source repository, so one-stop shop, if you will, and then dedicated resources to help, facilitate the processes that we're putting in place and the functions that we have, as well as that closed loop process, which will enable us to continually improve. Carrie, if you can go to the next slide, let's talk about that closed loop process. So we're still using a two-pronged approach. And this approach is helping us to make reusable content available to everybody in DXC. And the first prong in that is developing standard content for the new DXC offerings. So a lot of focus going into that first box that you see there. And then the second piece of that is harvesting additional content from your client proposals. So the things that you guys work to create in your bids. And so we do the harvesting for two different reasons. One, we want to support the standard offerings, and we might be able to provide additional ancillary content related to those offerings that we didn't create as part of the standard, things like a great executive summary, a really good cover letter, those types of things, industry focus, that kind of thing. We also want to, capture what we're calling, emerging offerings. Those are things like new technology services that are not part of the DXC portfolio, but things that might eventually evolve to some kind of standard. And so as we look at all of that in both approaches, the new standard content and the harvesting, we want to continually improve on both. And so as you kind of look through the wheel here, that's what that represents. Both the standard and the harvested content will be published in that gold source repository. That's part of the KM disciplines. The repository is called Standard Proposal Source, or SPS, and hopefully you heard that announced in the Chris Thomas memo that came out on April 5th. We'll talk more about additional communications that are going to happen a little bit later this month. But to summarize, here's the process. We actually create the standard content. We put it out there in SPS. You guys in pursuit teams go out there and you use it. And then as you use it, we look to see, is there any content that we can actually harvest? And it's probably not a full proposal. It may be portions of a proposal that we can use to either create additional content or improve the existing content that we have. And we're going to do that always in the context of a repeatable process, because that's what really enables us to improve. So Carrie, if you can go to the next slide, let's start talking about where we are today and kind of where we're going. So a lot has happened since November. And so I want to talk a little bit about how all of this fits in within SNCF and also within the broader DXC and some of the other things that you hear going on. So first off, our objective for standardizing and centralizing this content aligns to DXC's overall standardization effort. So some of you may have heard, Mike Lowry talking about the standardization effort, the solution modernization that Chris and others have talked about, and all of this aligns to that. It even supports some of the direct concepts that you heard Chris raise in the April SNCF Town Hall. Some of the things that you heard there were VBS structure, industry focus, and trying to move closer toward that, integrated solutions, or something called compound offerings. And so we are really focused on trying to align to all of those things. Plus, our process, when you look at it, you may think, okay, well, standard proposal content, that sounds a little archaic when everybody's talking about, the automated demos and, digital proposals and all those types of things. But it can support not only the traditional proposals that we send out in PowerPoint or in Word documents, but it also can support these new things because it becomes the foundational content for those things. And so it's really important that we get this right because it is kind of the building blocks for all the rest of it. So as you look at the slide here, we are fully integrated with the PLM process. What that means is that every offering within DXC will eventually have standard proposal content. We're starting as a priority with the top 30 major offerings. These are the offerings that comprise about 80% of our revenue, and they've got to be in GA status. In other words, they've gone through the PLM process and they're ready to be sold on the market. Once that happens, then we start working on them from a proposal content perspective. And so right now, for the 30 major offerings, there are about 129 sub-offerings that we're working to build out. And so what we want to do is we want to develop quality content, we want to put it in one place, and we want to make it really easy for you guys to use. And so, we got to kind of work through that in a phased approach. And so the first piece here really talks about publishing that foundational content. And so these are, this is the creating of the 129 sub-offering, pieces of content that we need out there. And each offering probably has about 6 to 8 different pieces of content for it. So it's a lengthy process, but the idea is to make everything standard and put it out there, make it available, and then improve upon it as we move forward. In this initial phase, you guys in bid management, the proposal excellence community, and really anybody in SNCF can benefit. And so anybody who's responsible, for proposals in SNCF can use this. The key functions are really enabling you to go out and browse for information, quickly find the content that you need around offerings as well as corporate content, because a lot of times in proposals we're asked to put corporate information in there. So we've got some of that for you. We also, have made it easy for you to auto-assemble things. We want you to be able to punch a button and put it into the standard DXC proposal template. We also want you to be able to rate the content. So if you're used to using Amazon or other, shopping tools on the internet, you can go out and you can actually tell us what's good directly on a particular document. What's good? What do we need to improve? And we want to hear that feedback. So the idea is that we're enabling you guys to go out as pursuit teams, pull the information that you need quickly, and not spend so much time searching for it, but really spend time positioning it for your specific client, because we feel like that's where the art form comes into play. You're never going to totally automate proposals. I don't know any company in the world that totally automates proposals, and people have tried, even in McKinsey and other groups. And it's just, there's too much of an art form associated with trying to position that for a client. And so what we're trying to do in this initiative is put a little bit of the science into it to make it easier so that you really can spend the majority of your time, doing that positioning, which is really where the finesse comes into play. In phase 2, what we're doing is we're looking at industry nuances. So you heard Chris talk in the town hall about, we need to have an industry focus. And so we are going to create that industry focus and add those nuances to the sub-offering content that we created in phase 1 by harvesting. And so we'll work, looking at your proposal content to actually gain some of that information. And so, as we harvest your proposals, we'll capture that, we'll make it available for others to use ongoing in a standard format. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to tap into something new called the New Industry Solution Framework. So if you guys heard Harshad talk about that in the town hall, that's something that we need to tap into as well, because that's going to also help to expedite that industry focus. So not only can you browse content by offering, but you'll be able to browse it by industry. And then the other thing we're going to do in phase 2 is we're going to translate some of our standard offerings and our corporate content into select languages. German and Spanish are already 100% confirmed. The other 2 languages, we've had some other European languages, French and Italian, that have been proposed. I'll let that stop ringing. Okay, so we've had French and Italian that have been proposed, but that's not confirmed yet. And so if you guys feel strongly that there are languages in your countries that, need to be addressed, particularly in Asia, then by all means, let us know. We've got to have the volume of proposals and deals, bids in those countries to be able to justify the cost, but we're certainly willing to, accept any proposals that you have. We're expecting to start the translations in the late summer, early fall, and that's when we've completed the 129, priority offerings that we're looking at, and translating those and the corporate content, into those select languages. Because if we wait and do it all at once, we get a better, deal on our discount, if you will, on our vendor that we use there. We're also in phase 2 going to open up the content to the sales community. And I know for some of you, and even Carrie, as we talked, last fall, that's a big deal, because, the sales community pings you and says, hey, can you help me? And you guys don't have time to help everybody. So, you're trying to get your own stuff done. So what we want to do is we want to open it up to the sales community. We want to let that poor guy that's out there in the field that doesn't have a bid manager, doesn't have a proposal manager or a proposal writer, he needs something to work with too, because he wants to win the deal for DXC also. And those little deals add up. So we want to give that guy everything that we can from a corporate perspective to make him successful or her successful. And so, in doing that, opening all of this up and giving them a starting place is really going to, help them, and also help you, because hopefully it can kind of take some pressure off of you. In phase 3, this is really where everything starts to come together and we start to see a lot of synergy. And phase 3 is important because if you heard Chris talk in the town hall, and if you've heard other leaders talk about some of this, we're not selling offerings, we're selling solutions. Clients want to buy solutions. And so what we've got to do is put the foundational pieces in place and then map those offerings to common solutions. And so we're working already to do that. That's not something that's going to happen really until the fall of this year, because it's a work in progress and we've got to build out the foundation before we can kind of connect all the dots. But at the same time, we're starting those conversations now. So in the town hall, you may have heard Rich Reba talk about compound offerings. we're already talking with Rich Reba and his team to understand what those are and put those in place. So as the offerings within a compound offering or a solution come together, we can go ahead and start mapping them as soon as they're available in our tool. So, we really won't have a lot of benefit on that until the fall, but, we're working on it now. We're also partnering with our delivery arm. So OE&E, these are the guys that are out there working on platform DXC. A lot of talk about Bionics these days. And so, we're putting content out there on Bionics, and we're also working with the delivery team to understand what will be the offerings on Platform DXC that will be considered certified or powered by Bionics. So we're working to do that also. Next slide, Carrie. All right, so we've talked a lot about our strategy. Let's talk about some of our key accomplishments real quickly. I'm going to make up some time here because I really want to focus on what you can expect as we begin the rollout. So first, from a tools perspective and process and tools, we worked very hard to try to figure out what is the best of the best in legacy CSE, in legacy ES, and bring that together. And in doing so, we ended up, consolidating and repurposing and enhancing some tools. We ended up with two tools, and one is standard proposal source, which I've already mentioned, and that is our content repository, so our gold source content tool. The other one is a submission portal that we're going to use to collect proposals from you guys as you provide them to clients. So there's more to come on that one, and I haven't mentioned it yet. We'll talk a little bit more in the deck about that one. We also took and rationalized and migrated some legacy data. This is important because it's going to take us a while to build out all these offerings. And as we build them out, we want to give you guys something that you can use in a temporary format. And so, everybody needs to understand that we took things like all of the information out of RPA. So if you're legacy CSE, that may resonate with you. BDL, GBAL, if there were, pieces of content that were still applicable, that weren't, old and obsolete, we took that content, we tried to put it into SPS to get everybody in the habit of coming to one tool and make it easy. We've also retired those tools. We also retired some legacy ES tools. So the global portion of Helicon got retired. If you have any content in a regional library for Helicon, that does still exist, so I don't want to confuse anybody there, but the global portion of that has been retired. These tools only really make sense if we have good content in them. So the next section here talks about what we do have available. So there are 32 documents with corporate information and policies, things that clients often ask for in proposals that you can go grab. There's also 18 countries that are represented in country-specific FAQs. How do we do business in those countries? And so we've got that information together. If you go out and you see things in the company information, in the country-specific FAQs, and you think, hey, that's missing something, or I've got other information that you can contribute, by all means, let Mike and I know, because, we don't claim to have everything out there. This is a group effort, and so it really does take a village to make sure that we've got everything current, especially if it's country-specific. We don't have all the right contacts all the time because people move on and so forth, and so if you can help us there and you see something that's a gap, please let us know. For the new standard offerings, the DXC offerings, we have 16 that are published so far, and we'll even give you a list later in the deck of those. And I'm expecting about 5 more in the next week. So working, very aggressively on those to try to make those available. The next piece has to do with harvesting. And this really isn't going to apply to the bid management community quite yet. It's something that we're piloting with the proposal community. And so we're going to continue to do that and capture information there, really work to perfect that, and then eventually, roll that out on a broader scale. So the next steps, what is it you can expect as we kind of move forward? First of all, as I've said, our top priority is try to get the new offering content out there, because that phase 1 is really our foundation to build on and to make it, really meaningful for everybody in the long term. So we're going to continue building that out. We'll have about 30% of the content out there. It says April 30th. That really should be, by the week of April 30th. So by the end of this week, I expect to probably have about 20 of them published, and we're adding, every single month. And things are even adding, more quickly than that on a weekly basis. We're going to continue doing the harvesting, and ultimately, after we piloted that, we will integrate it with PSM. So the pursuit support model will have a integrated function for this, so that large deals that are category A, B, and C can, submit proposals. These need to be in English, and we've decided to use the large ones because, we're limited on resources, and so, we figure more people worked on the larger ones, so hopefully the content might be a little bit better. That's going to happen sometime in the fall, winter of this year. So nothing, to affect you guys right away. We're going to, continue working on those compound offerings and bionics and all those things that I already talked about. And the rollout itself is occurring in phases. So beginning in March, we started rolling out to the proposal excellence community. Where in April, we've done 3 regional meetings with you guys to roll out to bid management. Solutioning, we're doing a little bit differently across April and May. And some of that is because of the leadership changes that have occurred. And then, as I mentioned, sales is going to happen in the June timeframe. And it's not just sales. Anybody outside of SNCF will be able to access the tools, anybody in DXC, post tool migration. And so let me talk about that, because our tool right now, we're creating a clone and we're having to move it from an ES environment into a DXC infrastructure environment. And so once that happens, it will be open through Global Pass authentication for everybody. From the executive level, from a rollout perspective, hopefully you saw the memo from Chris on April 5th. That's something, that was an introduction to what's happening. And then there's a follow-up memo that's actually planned for this week. In fact, I expect it to go out maybe even tomorrow. So let's look for that. But before that comes out, I really want to give you guys a sneak peek of some of the tools and show you, what some of the content is that you can expect before you get that call to action. So Carrie, if you can go to the next slide, please. So we have 2 tools. The first one here is the content tool. It's SPS. It's our primary tool. It's available now. We're going to, even give you the link there that you can see on the right-hand side. And you can use this to search for content by offering, download content if you need just 1 or 2 things, or if you need several things that are out there, be it legacy content or new information, you can, put those in your shopping cart, much like you do in Amazon or other applications online, and then automatically assemble those into the DXC proposal template. This is a huge time saver. So if part of your role is to go out there and find the content, cut and paste it and put it all together, hand it off to other solution, professionals or other people that need to kind of connect the dots and put it all together into that overarching solution summary, this is a huge time saver for you because you can pull it all together really quickly. And so, take the time to go out, look at our user guide, look at our demo, and really see what the tool can do for you. All the features and functions that I've been talking about are going to be in a step-by-step user guide that's out there, as well as a 5-minute demo that you can watch that will give you a demonstration of what you can expect the tool to do for you. So at least, do yourself a favor and check that out. If you don't think it's something that applies to you, but you know somebody else that it might help, by all means, send them the link. So, I've talked a lot about the primary tool. The secondary tool, like I said, it doesn't really apply for you guys at this point. It's something that's coming. It's basically a way for us to collect and capture things that are potentially reusable. And so, you guys will submit proposals, we'll extract them, cleanse them, categorize them, upload them, portions of them, I guess, to the gold source tool. But you guys don't have to take any action in this. This is really just for awareness at this point. Like I said, we're currently piloting this with the Proposal Excellence in the larger centers that they have. And eventually it'll roll out into PSM and Firefly. And once it does that, that obviously there'll be broader communications for all of you. Carrie, if you can go to the next slide, please. All right, so let's talk about what is available in SPS, because it's available to you now. And here's a view of the content that's been published so far. So on the left-hand side, you see all of the offering families, and most of those are green and a couple of them are yellow. The ones that are yellow are the ones that don't have any of those top 30 major offerings. So they have offerings, but they don't comprise 80% of the revenue. So we're not focused on those right away. The green ones are the ones that we're working. And where you see sub-offerings, those are offerings as part of that 129 that you can, go out and look at and use today. They've already been published and we're adding to them weekly. You can also see Bionics over there under new DXC emerging offerings and capabilities. I want to stress a couple of things about Bionics, a couple of cautions, if you will. So first, Bionics, let's keep in mind that it's not an offering. It's really an enabler. We framed it under more of a capability because of that. And so, we put an overview out there. We put something that says, here's what Bionics is, here's what it can do, for customers, here's some of our alliance partners, that kind of thing. But what we haven't done is we haven't ticked and tied that to all of the offerings that will sit on Platform DXC. Because Bionics only works if you have offerings on Platform DXC. And so, if you're thinking about putting that into a proposal, just be very cautious about that and keep that in mind. As soon as we, get list of those offerings and they become available in GA status, so general availability status, ready to sell, and OE&E, our delivery arm, has signed off on those, then we will make those notations in our proposal content too, so that you'll know which ones go with Bionics. So more to come on that one. The content itself is occurring, the development is occurring in waves. And so the first wave, you can see here, there are 63 offerings that are currently in general availability that we are working. We're following along right after PwC finishes their VBS and captain processes. And so we're creating the proposal content for those. The remaining 66, once they start moving into GA and complete their VBS, we'll do the same thing with them. Next slide. All right, so what does this mean for you as a bid manager? Because if I'm sitting there in your shoes, you're wondering, okay, what do I get out of this? And I just want to reemphasize that the first and foremost, the goal is to make your job easier. That's the whole purpose behind this initiative, is to make everybody more productive, more efficient, and be able to do a better job, with, the resources that we have available to us. And so we want to make it easy by giving you one tool so that you can find standard quality content in one place. You can easily, search for it, auto-assemble it. You don't have to cut and paste. You can spend your time refining it for your specific client needs. And ultimately, we hope that at the end of all of this, when we get to phase 3, that you can go to this tool, pull 70 to 80% at least of the content that you need out of the tool directly in a very short period of time, so that you can spend the rest of your time tailoring it for your client. We think we've got a good start on the content. I'll be honest with you, we didn't get as many resources to help develop the content as we'd hoped, so it's going a little bit slower than we'd all like. We'd all like to have it yesterday, but the team is, working a lot of overtime trying to, crank it out and get it out there for you to use. What's coming, as I said, is the industry nuances and adding that industry focus to that standard content. The language translations once we get the top priority offerings completed, and then mapping to those common solutions so that we can really not just search by offering, but search by solution, auto-assemble entire solutions, and all of the summary level content that goes with that. But there are some things in all of this that we do need from you. And so, first I'm going to ask, watch for future communication. So the memo that's going to come out from Chris this week, look for that call to action. There hopefully won't be anything really new that I haven't talked about, but it really kind of puts the sponsorship behind all of this and pulls it all together with some of the things that Chris did talk about in the town hall. Also look for content notifications. So every couple of weeks, what I'm going to do is, and initially it'll be me, it may ultimately be somebody else on my team, but we're going to leverage Workplace. And every couple of weeks when we have new content, we're going to let you know what that is proactively. So you don't have to go out to the tool and keep saying, oh, is it there? Because maybe you're looking for one or two specific offerings and they're never there. So you can just look at the memos and not have to, keep logging into the tool, if you're looking for something specific. But I would suggest, though, that you do promote the tool in your region with your pursuit teams and be an advocate, be a voice out there, because the more people that are using it and giving us feedback, the higher quality content we're going to have. And the other thing is just get in the habit of starting with the tool. Even if it doesn't have specifically what you want on a new offering yet, get in the habit of going out there, because you might find that there's even some legacy content that you can leverage, which will save you some time in the searching, because we've tried to put all of that together in one place. And then last, give us feedback. Tell us what we can do better. Help us improve. Help us elevate the value. Because if you don't tell us how we can help you, we're just guessing. And so, be our eyes and ears out there in the field and help us know what we can do to really add value for you. I can't emphasize enough that, we're all going to be more successful if we do work together. And so Mike and I definitely look forward to partnering with you as we move forward. And this is going to be an evolution. So as we evolve, then, hopefully we all work together, to do that effectively. So at this point, I'm going to pause and say, thank you for your participation. Don't hang up yet, though. We have some questions coming. And before we get to the questions, we want to just cover one technical aspect. So Carrie, if you can go to the next slide, want to talk a little bit about accessing the tool and the link that we've put out here in the deck. So if you are a legacy CSC user, and I know that some of you are, you're going to want to make sure that you select the email authentication method when you click on the link. Use your email and computer password. Carrie, can you go to the next one, please? I think we've got 3 slides on this. So we got someone from the European region to be kind of our guinea pig here. And so Richard has put his information out here just so you can see an example that you should have a HPE login, and you'll need to use that because that is your SNCF contractor ID. And so use that, because until June, it won't work for this tool unless you use this login ID. Once we move to the DXC environment, your global pass will work fine. But right now, we need you to use this ID. But if you enter in the email, enter in your password, and then Carrie, if you can go to the last slide. What you will see is the home page that pops up for the worldwide portal. A couple of things to note here is that if you want to go directly to content, just click on that content tab up at the top, and that will take you to all the offerings that I showed you by offering family. And there's a drop-down menus that you can use on those, as well as the user guide and the demo that I talked about. So you'll see buttons here that will enable you to go to those and click on them and download the user guide or watch the 5-minute demo. So take a few minutes to do that. And that's all I have. So Mike, I know you've been collecting questions. Are there any that are outstanding that I need to answer first before we open it up to the group?
I'll let the participants let me know if there are any questions still left, although Angela's having trouble getting in, so trying to figure out why.
Even with the contractor?
Yeah, I tried as you were talking earlier on, and one of my other colleagues did the same thing. So
let's take that offline for now, Angela, please. Okay. Thank you. I've got just a couple of questions,
Sure.
Particularly around, well, 3 actually. The front door, there is a total confusion. So, people have been going to the front door for everything. to help with, whether it's, for content that they need, etc., etc. So I think we're going to struggle with that in the first instance, because now suddenly we have a different portal. Have any of the other regions just thought about or had this as a potential issue?
Yeah, actually, no one has raised that yet. And I'll chime in, but Mike, if you have some other thoughts, because I know you've worked with Nancy Gallagher for a long time, maybe you can chime in if I miss something. But I think the differentiation is that, when you don't know where to find something, Front Door can help you locate that. And so you can go to the Front Door on what we sell to that link for Front Door, and you can, enter a request, and Nancy's team will help you find that. Sometimes that's things for an RFI, sometimes that's things for an RFP that you can't, lay your hands on initially. What I would recommend is that if it is for a proposal, or if it's some kind of RFI question that has to do with corporate information or policies, go out to SPS first and see if you can find it on your own, because one, that's going to be faster for you. And if you can't, then go to the Front Door.
Okay.
But I would kind of take it in that order. Mike, do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Front Door is a resource for very broad kinds of information. I mean, references, all kind of access to different kind of resources, solutioning, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we get that, Mike, but the sales guys forget that every single deal, right? So
yeah.
So that's the issue. We understand what the Front Door is used for, but given that the sales guys only use it, when they don't get what they want through their back doors, that's a potential issue, right?
Well, Karen, be careful.
In general, Nancy's team is pretty good at referring people to SPS. If it's something, give me some information on virtual private cloud that I can put in a proposal. Very often they will refer them to SPS. If it's something beyond that, then they're there to help you.
Okay.
Be careful about referring salespeople though to SPS right now. Wait until June to do that, because if they try to go out and access it now, they're not going to have the contractor license, and so that's why we haven't opened it up to them. And we'll promote it. We will actually promote it through corporate memos and their leadership chains beginning in the June timeframe.
That's good, because you won't get a very big uptake at all here in ANZ, because, as I said, 70% of us legacy CSC, so most people will wait till June. The other thing I was interested in, will you have your subject matter experts as your go-to writers for the offering content? Because that is always an issue we have. You don't know if it's fit for purpose, particularly if we're looking for things like that. And how do we know it's best in breed?
Yeah, so here's our process for developing. What we're doing is we're working directly with the offering managers. So the offering manager, the product manager, and while they are on point for helping us, they provide the input information. I have writers on my team that actually take and translate that into proposal, client-facing, content, because we don't expect them to be good writers. But we take their inputs and it should be coming from pieces that are part of the PLM, artifacts. So the solution kit, or you may have heard it as the solution pack, or things like that are really critical, to passing the general availability gate reviews. So we take that content, working with them, but we also recommend that they do some things a little bit differently. Once they submit the inputs to us and we write it up, we want that write-up to go out to maybe a solution person that they are, comfortable working with, that they, work with frequently. Let that person look at it. If there's a pre-sales person that they work with frequently, let that person look at it and provide feedback. And so I always recommend when I talk to them initially that they do that. I can't guarantee or force them to do that, but we're certainly, requesting that they do.
Well, that's always the challenge, because we're getting 4 weeks notice. That's it now from start to finish. So, That was okay when we had 6 weeks, but just time doesn't allow.
Yeah. Well,
The other-
we don't want the offering manager, product manager to create something in a vacuum, and then the people that actually need to put it in a proposal go, well, this is terrible. So we're trying to get other eyes on it before that happens. Now, again, I can't force it, and we'll just kind of have to see how that works, but we are trying to recommend that.
And I guess the other, I was interested to see that you've got canned executive summaries. I'm very surprised about that, because if I see another executive summary that says DXC thanks you for the opportunity, that's not relevant. We find that the executive summaries are so unique to the RFP itself. There's nothing canned that you can write about it. You've got to write it to that RFP every single time.
And, I might let Mike take this one since he's more familiar with some of them, but I will say that for the most part, you're right, because that whole art form that I was talking about, Carrie, that's what comes into play when you're writing an executive summary. You're writing the thing that's going to, catch their attention and get them to read the rest of the proposal. And so, as they do that, you're trying to position it for them specifically. But if there are some key components in an executive summary and you're that sales guy in the field that just really doesn't know how to compose one, we can give you some examples to start with.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yep.
Mike, would you add anything to that?
Yeah, no, I agree with Carrie. I mean, if you go out to what we sell, we've got the best practices for creating an executive summary, which is exactly what she said. They should always be unique to the client. But as we're starting to harvest content in SPS, and we do not have executive summaries out there yet, it is something that we will start looking at, so that as we have executive summaries that are specific to a solution or an industry or something like that, it will provide starting place content.
Yeah, and I think it's probably unique to the regions. We won't allow we don't send executive summaries out to our guys. We say you've got to start again. We'll help you with the 11-point roadmap or the 9-point executive summaries. But it just can't be a standard cut and paste because they haven't thought about it, because we lose the chance to create that hook to get them to read the rest of it. But, I understand that there's some people in the smaller deals, well, that's not possible. So that would be better than nothing, of course.
Yeah, we don't want the guy out there that's on his own making it up. And right now we've had a few people doing that, which always causes problems on the delivery end, on the back end. So, I think having something as a starting place is always better than nothing.
And I promise my last question, your harvesting approach, is it push or pull?
I guess I'm not quite sure what you mean.
Do you, you pull it from us, or we push it out to you, and how can we, share it? Yeah. How can we be sure that it's going to be totally genericized, and all of the content relating to that particular client and their name is actually, obviously deleted?
Yeah. So that's why we have dedicated resources on the team. As I mentioned, I'm a little understaffed at the moment, but, harvesting is a little bit of a lesser priority right now, because we got to get the base content or the foundational content out there. So we're actually piloting that with, the proposal excellence teams to try and make sure that we're getting that right. And so it will be definitely a push, because we are asking that you guys will go and complete a 5-minute process in a quick and easy tool. And we've proven with proposal excellence that, all you've got to do is go out there, enter in an offering ID, select, 1 or 5 files or however many files you have for a bid, and, submit those. So it's a very quick and easy process. And so you guys will submit those through that portal that I talked about for submissions. But nothing to do on that yet. That's going to be part of PSM as we move forward later in the year.
Okay.
So Janelle, it's Angela from Brisbane. Just a couple of questions. Firstly, how do you deal with those bid sites that are secure? So where we're dealing with, say, government deals and they're secret. How do you extract that info if you do it all?
They don't, Angela. It's up to us to send it to the portal, and if it's got to remain on shore, it doesn't go anywhere.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
we would exclude that, probably. And if there is a large client, to kind of go back to your question, Carrie, about cleansing, we're gonna cleanse all of the client names out of there. But if you say a large, you know, beverage company, with headquarters located, in the U.S. I mean, most people are going to start thinking, oh, well, who could that be, right?
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of things like that we have to be careful of as well. If we cannot cleanse it effectively, even with, references to the type of industry, then we may need to exclude it.
Yeah.
So we're looking at those things.
I guess, and they're not coming into our SharePoint site and sucking out the information.
That's
Yeah,
right.
I understand. Yeah, of course. Yes. And another general question, I suppose, in some instances where we've submitted, proposal responses and we've subsequently received feedback from clients to evaluate our content, in some instances we get, not so great feedback where we've, missed out in a particular way, maybe not provided enough information or given, functional descriptions, etc. How do you capture that assessment post RFP submission to reflect in the portal content, or do you not?
Well, I think we can capture that, but that's where we are a little bit dependent on you guys as, again, our eyes and ears out there in the field, working with clients. And when you go to use the content, so let's say you used 3 different offerings out of SPS in that proposal, and it was feedback that you received from the client about that particular offering, saying, well, you could have given us more detail about this or that, or, whatever it may be. You can then go back into SPS and you can provide a review, just like you would review a product and tell us what that client said about certain pieces of content.
That's great. Fabulous.
Hey, Angela, I popped another link in there. Have you tried that?
Yeah, I've just tried it and then I stopped to ask the question. Sorry, Mike, I'll keep going.
No problem.
We're trying to have Angela get in.
Oh, we'll do it later. We can do it offline, Mike. Let's not hold everyone up on this.
Yeah. Well, I know you guys have a busy day. We're at the top of the hour. I'm happy, Carrie, to stay on for a few minutes if there are more questions. But if you guys need to drop, I totally understand.
Did we cover everything that was on the chat session, Mike?
I hope so.
I'm not looking at it. I don't know.
No, you covered my questions, Mike. Thank you.
Thanks.
And thank you, Mike, for fielding the questions as I presented. All right. Anybody else want to ask a question before we close?
Well, listen, I just wanted to say thank you, Mike and Janelle, and we'll see, wait this and see how it works. And, I know it's a huge initiative, and I can certainly see, how valuable it'll be for those bids where we've got our sales guys on their own and our offering people on their own. So it's just, I guess, it's only going to be as good as the feedback we give you and as good as the content we give you. So it's just have a go and see how it works out once it's all up and running in June for us. Given there's probably very little on it, we've probably got, a lot more content on our portal in ANZ for the moment that people use anyway. We have this generic RFI document that at the moment is 200 pages, which we just keep for the ANZ region, which everyone knows to use as the content to pick up for just smaller deals, and which we update every week with the latest, little bits and pieces of best of breed, if you like. So this will be great that we've got this extra capability as well once you build out your content.
Yeah, one of the things, Carrie, just in something you just said that I may want to just briefly mention, we're showing you the worldwide portal here, and that's what we're rolling out first because that's where all of the standard content will be. Ultimately, though, the tool that we have has the ability to have country-specific portals. We could change that to be regional-specific portals. And so your document, like, the thing that you have that's got all of your information in it, for RFIs, we could consolidate that at a future date and put it all in one place. So
Oh,
maybe
look, well, let's
maybe keep that in
go
mind
with
as a
this.
future step.
Yeah. It's all in one place at the moment on our sort of one-stop shop site, but yeah, certainly food for thought down the track. Janelle.
Well, in your portal, you know, we can control, you know, some of the access to some of that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you
Right,
guys
thanks,
again
Jan.
for the
Thank you.
opportunity. And, you know, Carrie, if you think of other things that you want us to come and customize for this group to talk about other topics, please let us know. And we're happy to do that.
Will do. Thanks again, guys. Much appreciated.
Yep. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye.